Hi beautiful people, welcome to another sewing tutorial. In today's tutorial we're going to be learning how to cut and sew this beautiful shift or bubu gown. It also has tassels in front and it also has an inseam pocket. So if that seems like something you are interested in, please do not forget to watch the end of the video. Please do well to like, subscribe. Please also do well to share with your loved ones. For my returning subscribers, thank you so much for joining, and for my new viewers, you're very much welcome. This is the right place for you. Let's get started with today's tutorial. So guys, I have my tape here, my fabric which is about 1.5 meters. I have 5 tassels, my rulers and my chalk, and also my scissors. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold my fabric into 4. I'm going to use my iron to just make the folding into 4, and I'm going to go ahead and start taking my measurements. So my fabric is unfold, and from this edge I have it folded into 4. It's folded into 4 because we'll be drafting the back and the front together. So I'm going to mark 1 inch from the top of my fabric. This is going to stand as my shoulder line and also my starting point. So I'll proceed to rule out a straight line right here. Next, I'll take the full length of my dress. I'm going to be making use of 36-inch for the dress, but I'm going to proceed to also add 1 inch for hemming allowance. So the full length that I have here will be 37. I'll mark the lines here again, and I'll use my ruler to connect these points. So now I'll go back to my shoulder line and I'll start imputing my point. So from my shoulder line, I'm going to go ahead and mark my shoulder measurement divided by 2. So before that, I just wanted to let you know the width of my material. So it's my hip measurement divided by 4 plus about 5 inches extra. So my hip measurement is 9.5, and then I added 5 extra inches. So now on my shoulder line, I'll mark my shoulder measurement divided by 2, which is 8. I'll proceed to add some extension for my sleeve, and what I did there was mark 7 inches. From this 7 inches, I went down by 1.5, and I'm going to connect it to my shoulder. So this is my shoulder slope. The next thing I'm going to do is to mark my neck width. For the back neck width, I'm going to be working with 3 by 1.5, and from the front we're going to be working with 3 by 3. So here I marked 3 inches for the width and 1.5 for the depth of the neckline. I'm going to proceed to use my curve to just mark the neck shape. So guys, just take note that in the front you're going to be having a slit by the neckline, and please also take note that your neck width should be 3 by 3 for the front. So now I'm going to mark my sleeve opening. For my sleeve opening, I'm going to be making use of 9 inches, and I'm marking that from the shoulder slope that I have. So I'll just connect like so. The next thing I'll do now is to start taking my points, and from my shoulder line, I'll place my tape from that point and mark my bust line. So for my bust line, I marked 10.5. For my waist, I went down to 16.5. For my hip, I'm going to go from my waist down to 8 inches because this is where my hip is. So now I'll use my ruler to connect those points. So after marking the lines, this is what I have. I'm just going to label it quickly to avoid confusion. So this is my bust line, my waistline, and this is my hip line and my full length. Now we're going to proceed by marking our body measurements. So guys, if you want the bubu to be very loose, you can use the widest part of your body to take the measurements. But for me, I'm going to be marking my bust measurement divided by 4 plus 3 inches. The 3 inches is for ease and for stitching. So on my waist, I marked my waist measurement divided by 4 plus 3 inches ease allowance. And I also marked my eave measurement divided by 4 plus 3 inch. The measurement that I have on my eave, I'll replace it on the full length. After marking it, I'll go ahead and use my rulers to connect these points. So I'm going to use my straight ruler to connect like so, and to join the waist to eave, I'm going to use my curved ruler. You know our body parts are not straight, so this is why I'm joining like so. So I'm going to go ahead and just form a shape here to curve in my armhole, because our armhole also need a space to fit. So now we're done with the drafting of this bubu. I'm going to proceed by cutting it out. So when you get to the neckline, please add 0.5 inch for stitching allowance and also add it on your shoulder line. So now I'm going to go ahead and label this the back, and I'll separate it from the front. So this is my front piece. I'm going to mark my neck width of 3 inches, and I'm also going to mark the depth that I want for the slit in the front. So now I'm going to go ahead and cut this out. So guys, as I said, before marking your slit, you need to mark your neck width and depth of 3 by 3. So this is what I have. This is the slit. What I'm going to do next is to cut out the facing for both pieces. So I'm going to start with my front piece. I'm just going to take a fabric and I'm going to fold it into 2. So I'll place the fabric underneath my main piece, and I'll use this to cut out the facing. I'll make sure that they're sitting on each other like so. I'll proceed to just use my pins to hold this down. So now that I've held it down, I'm just going to go ahead and trace out my neck width. I'll also trace out my shoulder, and I'll open up the slit up until what we drafted out in the front. So right here, I stopped at the marking that I have for my slit. So now I'm just going to proceed to just make sure that I leave about 3 inches before cutting out the excess fabric. So because this facing is quite big, I'm just going to be making use of 3 inches all over to get the wideness of my facing. So I'm just going to mark 3 inches like so. You can also make use of 5 inches depending on how wide you want this facing to be. But mine, I'm just going to work with exactly 3 inches. I'm going to cut this out. And this is how it looks when you open it up. So guys, I'm going to bring in my front piece. I'm going to face them right sides on each other, and I'm going to stitch all around the neckline. And when I get to the V shape, I'll go ahead and stitch as close as possible. So now I'm going to proceed by cutting out the facing for the back as well. I'll repeat exactly what we did in the front. I'll just go ahead and cut out the neckline. I'll trim off the shoulder line. And I'll proceed to mark 3 inches all around the facing to get the width of the facing that I need. I'll just proceed to cut this out. So I'll place my fabric right sides on each other, and I'm going to proceed to stitch by the neckline. So for the pocket, I went ahead to fold my fabric into 4. I went down by about ½ inch, and then I marked the opening of the pocket, which is 8 inch, and I just formed a shape to get my pockets. So you can just follow the video as I'm doing to get the shape of your pockets, and just go ahead and trim it out to your desired shape. So this is what I have for mine. I have 2 for each side. So this is how it looks after stitching in the neckline. I'm going to proceed to trim out all the excess, and I'm going to also give it a notch. To flip it over, I'm going to give my facing a top stitch and I'm going to proceed to iron this out. So after stitching the front piece as well, this is what we have. I'm going to go ahead and just notch the necessary parts, which are mostly the curvy parts, and I'm also going to trim off the shoulder. So right now I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to also proceed to give it a good press. So to insert the pockets from my waistline, I'm going to proceed by marking 1 inch below my waistline, and I'll proceed to mark the opening of my pocket, which is 8 inch. I'll pin my fabric like so. Please note this is the right sides on each other, and I'll stitch by ½ inch. I'll repeat the same thing on the side, which is marking 1 inch below my waistline and my pocket opening, which is 8 inch. I'll place my pocket piece right sides on each other and I'll stitch. I'll repeat the exact same thing for my back piece and I'll proceed to stitch them down on my machine. After top stitching my neckline, this is how it looks, and these are my pockets after stitching down. Now to join the front piece to the back piece, I'm going to place my fabric right sides on each other. So I'm just going to make sure that everything is sitting in place. I'll bring my back piece and I'll place them like so. So I'm going to be using the shoulder facing to just stitch all around. So as I flipped it over, just watch as I did, and I'm going to stitch on the shoulder line. I'll repeat the same thing here. I'll use the back facing to cover up the front facing and I'll stitch the shoulders. After stitching the shoulders, I'll proceed to join my entire piece by the side. I'll stitch from the top by 1 inch. When I get to the pocket, I'll stitch by ½ inch, and when I get to the other side, I'll do the same thing. So after stitching and pressing, this is how beautiful the dress looks. I went ahead to use my hemming gum to close up the bottom part, and I also used my hemming gum for the sleeve as well because I didn't want any stitch on my fabric. So these are my pockets, and this is how beautiful it looks on the front. Next thing I'm going to do is to attach the tassels. So because I only have 5, I'm just going to place one on my neckline like so. I'll proceed to pin this down. After pinning, I'll also place the other remaining tassels on the places that I wanted to sit at, and that will be all for this dress. I hope this tutorial was easy to follow, and if this video was very helpful, please do not forget to like, share, do leave a comment, and guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye guys.